In a bold move that's shaking up American politics, former President Donald Trump has announced that, if re-elected, he plans to completely eliminate income taxes. But is this promise too good to be true? In a speech that has made headlines across the country, Trump has vowed to eliminate the federal income tax completely, claiming it would ease the burden on middle-class families and stimulate the economy. His plan would replace this crucial source of revenue with a new system, possibly a national sales tax, which he believes would benefit consumers and businesses alike. But while this proposal sounds like a dream come true for many Americans, the reality of eliminating income taxes is far more complicated, and potentially dangerous, for the country's economic future. What's the catch? In this special report, we'll explore why this proposal could be more problematic than it seems. While the idea of no income tax might sound appealing, there are serious economic, political, and practical challenges that need to be addressed. How would the government replace the lost revenue? What impact would a national sales tax have on ordinary Americans? And what would happen to crucial public services that rely on income tax dollars? Trump's announcement has certainly gotten attention, but as we'll see tonight, there are many questions left unanswered. From the economic implications to the political fallout, the proposal has sparked fierce debate. Will it help America's economy, or will it make things worse for the very people it's meant to help? Tonight, we'll break down the details of Trump's plan, look at the potential pros and cons, and hear from experts who can shed light on what this bold proposal means for everyday Americans, government funding, and the future of the U.S. economy. Former President Trump's tax proposal is certainly bold, and on the surface, it seems like a win for many Americans who are fed up with the nation's high income taxes. Trump has suggested that he would eliminate federal income taxes entirely and replace them with a new tax system, potentially a national sales tax or consumption tax. In his announcement, Trump argued that eliminating income taxes would be a game-changer for the economy. The former president claims that removing this major tax burden from families would increase disposable income, stimulate consumer spending, and boost overall economic growth. This, he says, would result in more jobs, higher business profits, and a better standard of living for many Americans. Trump's reasoning for eliminating income taxes centers around the belief that Americans should keep more of their hard-earned money and that this will fuel an economic boom. With income taxes being one of the largest deductions from an individual's paycheck, eliminating them would theoretically give consumers more disposable income, which could increase demand for goods and services, thus benefiting businesses and workers alike. But while removing income taxes sounds great to many, it's important to dig deeper into what exactly would replace them. Trump's proposal is based on the assumption that a national sales tax could generate enough revenue to support the federal government. But the key question remains, how much would a sales tax need to be in order to replace the lost income tax revenue? Currently, income taxes provide about 50% of the U.S. federal government's revenue. The government uses this money to fund essential services such as defense, healthcare, social security, and education. Without this source of income, the government would need to make up the lost funds, potentially leading to a higher sales tax or other taxes that could place a strain on American families. Trump's proposal doesn't give much detail on how exactly a national sales tax would work, but it's clear that implementing a nationwide sales tax would require a substantial rate to replace the billions of dollars the government currently generates from income taxes. Feasibility is the real issue here. A 20% national sales tax sounds extreme, but if Trump is serious about replacing income taxes without leaving a significant gap in federal revenue, this may be what the country would have to face. And while many Americans might celebrate the idea of no more income taxes, the reality could be that they'd pay more at the register for everyday goods. A higher sales tax would also hit the poorest Americans the hardest. Those with lower incomes tend to spend a higher percentage of their income on necessities like food and transportation. A higher sales tax would effectively make everyday goods more expensive for the middle class and lower income families, who would feel the brunt of this burden. There's also the question of how much businesses would pass on the cost to consumers. If companies are required to pay higher taxes through a national sales tax, it's likely that they would increase prices for consumers, further raising the cost of living. The idea of no income taxes is appealing, but when you factor in the potential for higher sales taxes, the benefits may be short-lived for middle-class Americans. Even if some individuals end up with more money in their paychecks, the cost of living could increase to the point where any additional savings would be negated. While Trump's proposal may be viewed by many as a way to stimulate the economy and relieve tax burdens, it's clear that this plan comes with significant economic risks. If the government doesn't replace the lost revenue appropriately, and if businesses pass on the cost to consumers, Americans might find themselves paying in other ways, just not through income taxes. While Trump's proposal to eliminate income taxes may sound appealing to many, the economic implications of such a drastic move cannot be ignored. A central issue is the revenue loss that would occur if income taxes were eliminated. Income taxes currently account for roughly 50% of federal government revenue, funding essential services like defense, Social Security, Medicare, education, and more. Without this income, the government would be forced to find a new source of revenue to maintain these services, which would likely result in higher sales taxes or other taxes on goods and services. However, implementing a national sales tax comes with its own set of complications. Replacing income tax revenue with a sales tax may not be as simple as it sounds. The sales tax rate would have to be extremely high to make up for the billions of dollars the government currently collects from income taxes. Experts suggest that a 20 to 25% national sales tax would be required to replace the lost revenue. However, such a high sales tax would disproportionately affect lower and middle-income families who spend a larger portion of their income on basic needs. In fact, lower-income Americans would feel the brunt of a higher sales tax, as they typically spend a larger percentage of their income on essential items like food, fuel, and utilities. According to the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, a national sales tax of 10 to 25% would hit poor and working-class families the hardest. These households would pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes compared to wealthier families, making the proposal potentially regressive. Even though Trump claims a sales tax would stimulate the economy by encouraging more consumer spending, the price increases caused by the higher sales tax could negate the extra disposable income that Americans might gain from the elimination of income taxes. For instance, if gas prices rise by 20% due to the new sales tax, even the extra money saved from no income tax would likely be consumed by the increased cost of living. Middle-class families who would see some relief in their paychecks could still find themselves in a tight spot when they face higher prices at the checkout. In the end, the policy could do more harm than good by making everyday goods and services more expensive, thereby reducing the purchasing power of the very consumers Trump aims to help. The overall cost of living is expected to rise sharply under Trump's plan, which could contribute to a worsening of income inequality. If wealthier Americans are able to absorb the higher sales tax with minimal impact on their lifestyle, working-class and low-income Americans may bear the brunt of the policy. As income taxes would be eliminated, the government would lose a progressive tax system where those with higher earnings contribute more to federal revenue. A sales tax, by contrast, would tax everyone equally, regardless of income, further exacerbating the economic divide. What's more, the government would likely be forced to make significant cuts to public services. Programs that millions of Americans rely on, such as Social Security, Medicare, and education, could be in jeopardy if the lost income tax revenue is not replaced in a sustainable way. The government may need to resort to borrowing more money or cutting essential services, both of which have their own long-term consequences for the economy. Social Security, for example, is one of the largest expenditures of the federal government, and many seniors rely on these benefits for their livelihoods. Without income taxes, these essential programs could be underfunded, leaving millions of people vulnerable. Trump's proposal could potentially lead to budget deficits and the reduction of essential services, which would likely hit the most vulnerable Americans the hardest. By eliminating income taxes and replacing them with a sales tax, we could see a shift in how taxes are collected, but at what cost? The most immediate and pressing concern with eliminating income taxes is how the government will continue to fund the vital services that Americans rely on. The United States government spends trillions of dollars each year on programs such as Social Security, Medicare, defense, education, and infrastructure. Currently, income taxes are the primary source of revenue that supports these services. If income taxes were eliminated, the government would need to come up with an alternative revenue source, otherwise, it would have to drastically cut these services. Trump's proposal to replace income taxes with a national sales tax could theoretically help fund government services, but the amount of revenue it would generate remains highly uncertain. As we discussed earlier, a sales tax would need to be extremely high. Some estimates suggest a rate of 20 to 25% just to make up for the loss of income tax revenue. But what would happen if this revenue isn't enough? Cuts to essential services might be inevitable, and that's where the real dangers of this plan begin to emerge. Programs such as Social Security and Medicare are funded largely by income taxes. If the government were to lose this source of revenue, the future of these programs could be in jeopardy. Social Security, in particular, is a program that supports millions of retired and disabled Americans, and without a reliable revenue source, those benefits could be cut or reduced. The Medicare program, which provides health coverage for millions of elderly Americans, could also face cuts under this new tax system. Medicare is funded by a combination of income taxes and premiums paid by beneficiaries, and without sufficient revenue from income taxes, the government could struggle to meet the rising costs of healthcare for senior citizens. Additionally, education and public safety programs, which are essential for the functioning of society, would also be at risk. If the federal government is unable to generate enough revenue to fund these services, local governments may be forced to raise their own taxes or reduce funding for schools, police forces, and fire departments. This could exacerbate existing inequalities and create a two-tiered system where only the wealthiest communities receive adequate services. Without sufficient funding, infrastructure projects like roads, bridges, and public transportation could face delays or even cancellations. The long-term impact of underfunding critical infrastructure could be devastating for the economy, affecting everything from traffic congestion to job creation in construction and engineering sectors. Defense is another area where the U.S. government spends a significant portion of its budget. The U.S. military is the largest in the world, and maintaining its strength and readiness requires constant investment. With no income tax revenue, maintaining a robust defense program would become increasingly difficult, and the U.S. might find itself vulnerable in a world where global conflicts and national security threats are rising. If income taxes were eliminated and replaced by a sales tax, the government would face immense pressure to make up for the shortfall in funding. While Trump's supporters may argue that a national sales tax will incentivize spending and help boost economic growth, it's clear that a higher sales tax would disproportionately impact lower and middle-income Americans, who would bear the brunt of higher prices for everyday goods. This financial strain could have serious consequences for government services. Social Security, Medicare, education, and even military defense could be severely underfunded, leading to cuts in benefits, layoffs of public sector workers, and delays in critical infrastructure projects. The poorest Americans, who already face significant financial hardship, would likely feel the greatest impact of these cuts. Trump's proposal to eliminate income taxes has sparked a firestorm of debate in both political circles and across the American public. While the idea has won praise from some of Trump's supporters, it has also faced sharp criticism from Democrats, Republicans, and independent analysts who argue that such a policy could have far-reaching and potentially damaging consequences for the nation's future. On the right, Trump's tax proposal is being hailed as a bold move that would help middle-class Americans and stimulate economic growth. Conservative leaders see the elimination of income taxes as a way to reduce the tax burden on hardworking Americans and incentivize consumer spending. Republicans in Congress have largely supported Trump's vision, although some are hesitant about the feasibility of such a plan. However, even within the Republican Party, some are raising concerns about the practicality of this proposal. Senator Mitch McConnell and other prominent Republicans have questioned how the government would continue to fund essential services like Social Security, Medicare, and the military without the steady revenue generated by income taxes. Some argue that, while the idea of eliminating income taxes is attractive to voters, it could be politically unfeasible given the massive spending cuts that would be necessary. On the left, the reaction has been overwhelmingly negative. Democrats have strongly condemned the idea of eliminating income taxes, calling it a dangerous and irresponsible move that would hurt the most vulnerable Americans. Progressives argue that a national sales tax would disproportionately impact the poor and middle class, who already spend a large portion of their income on basic needs like food, housing, and healthcare. Joe Biden and other Democratic leaders have blasted the proposal, claiming that it would lead to massive budget deficits and force the government to slash funding for critical programs like Social Security and Medicare. Democrats are framing the issue as a fight for economic justice, arguing that Trump's plan would shift the tax burden from the wealthy, who benefit the most from tax cuts, to those who can least afford it. Public opinion also reflects the growing polarization around Trump's tax proposal. While many Americans are drawn to the idea of a no-income tax system, there is increasing concern about the long-term consequences. Recent polls show a split in public opinion, with 55% of Americans expressing skepticism about the proposal's impact on the economy and government services. Independents, in particular, seem to be split on the issue, with many expressing doubt about the feasibility of eliminating income taxes without significant negative consequences. While some support the idea of a national sales tax, they also worry about the regressive nature of such a tax, and whether it would disproportionately affect middle-class and lower-income families. As the 2026 election draws closer, Trump's economic platform, which includes his promise to eliminate income taxes, will be a key issue. His ability to convince independent voters and moderate Republicans that his plan is not only feasible but also beneficial to the American people could determine the outcome of the election. While Trump's base is firmly behind his proposal, the backlash from both parties suggests that his path to implementing such a radical tax reform will not be easy. The political fallout could lead to a standoff in Congress, with both Republicans and Democrats scrambling to find a solution to the growing budget gap and deficits created by the elimination of income taxes. Ultimately, Trump's proposal to eliminate income taxes is a bold gamble that could have significant political consequences. As we approach the 2026 election, the question remains, will this plan help or hurt Trump's chances at re-election? Only time will tell. As we approach the 2026 election, Trump's tax plan to eliminate income taxes is quickly becoming one of the most controversial and divisive issues in American politics. While the promise of a no-income tax system is appealing to many, the economic challenges and political consequences of such a drastic proposal are starting to take shape. Voters across the country are asking themselves, can Trump deliver on this promise, or is this another unachievable fantasy? As we've seen in previous segments, the feasibility of eliminating income taxes without harming essential public services like Social Security, Medicare, and defense is highly questionable. The national sales tax that would replace income taxes would likely increase the cost of living for middle-class and lower-income families, making them bear the brunt of the financial strain. The political fallout from Trump's proposal is already evident. While his base remains loyal to his vision, independent voters and moderate Republicans are increasingly skeptical. Democrats have seized on this issue to attack Trump's economic policies, framing his plan as a regressive tax that would hurt the working class the most. As we head into the 2026 election, Trump's economic platform will be one of the key issues that voters will have to consider. While the promise of no income taxes may attract many voters who feel burdened by the current tax system, the reality of higher sales taxes and the potential loss of critical government services could turn many voters against him. The battle for the 2026 presidency will likely be shaped by how effectively Trump can address the concerns raised by his tax proposal. Democrats will likely continue to make the case that Trump's plan would lead to higher inequality, budget deficits, and cuts to essential public services like healthcare and education. Trump's ability to respond to these concerns will be crucial in swing states such as Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where voters are still undecided about whether his economic policies can deliver on their promises. If Trump can convince voters that his national sales tax proposal will benefit the economy without creating significant financial hardship, he may be able to retain enough support to secure a second term. However, if the economic risks continue to outweigh the benefits, Trump could face significant challenges in convincing independent voters and moderate Republicans that his plan is both practical and fair. Trump's re-election bid will depend heavily on how he frames this issue to the public. Taxes, government spending, and economic growth will be at the forefront of the debate in 2026. If Trump can find a way to address the financial concerns of middle-class Americans while still pushing forward with his tax cuts, he could turn the tide in his favor. But if his tax plan remains seen as a political gamble with potentially catastrophic consequences for public services, Trump's re-election chances could be severely impacted. As Americans prepare for the 2026 election, the question remains, can Trump overcome the economic hurdles of his tax plan, or will it become his greatest political liability? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear: the future of U.S. taxation, the role of government services, and the economic stability of the nation will be determined in the coming years. Trump's proposal to eliminate income taxes may be the defining issue of the election, and the ultimate outcome could reshape America's tax system for generations to come. As we continue to track the impact of Trump's tax proposal, we'll keep you updated on the latest developments. Will Trump's bold tax promise win him support, or will the reality of higher taxes and fewer public services turn voters away? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below to let us know what you think about Trump's tax plan and its potential impact on America's future.